Hey guys, it's Thomas from Autogefühl, and this is a special episode about the latest Tesla announcement called Robotaxi, or their autonomous day, their autonomous driving day. They had a recent press conference. So, why is that significant? Just imagine I would not hit the start button, take the steering wheel, but I would just say, come on car, drive me somewhere, and then the car would start driving. Or even more, if I were to take my smartphone and tell the smartphone where I want to go, then, just like a minute later or something, a Robotaxi would appear in front of my door and I could just, take a ride. Of course, a similar way like the Uber and Lyft system already does, like this ride hauling at the moment works. So in some countries it's already allowed, majorly of course in the US, and it works quite well there. But the Tesla thought is the Robotaxi without any driver and to be a little bit more flexible even. So what has happened at this press conference? Well, the big thing was they announced they have a bigger and more powerful chip now, a chip that is exceeding the existing chips on a couple of times from the scale, so it's definitely faster than anything else being built inside a car. And they need that to process the immense amount of data they collect from their existing fleet vehicles. And that is then the basis for their calculations for the autonomous driving. So they basically combine a great chip, high processing power, great performance with big data. So what sensors are they using for that? Tesla says they don't want to use LiDAR, so those are the laser-based scanners, because they are too expensive and too complicated for the vehicle use. They want to concentrate on camera and radar, and mostly really on the camera system. So the radar, works in situations where you cannot see yourself, like for example in fog, or also for an autonomous emergency braking. But the camera especially supposed to realize what's going on and also collect this big data to really see what's going on. And well, what is the key thing for that? The key aspect of that is called neural networks. And that means that the processor in the Tesla cars is working like our brain does, basically, or like a Google picture search. So they also gave a good example. For example, a car is driving in front of you, and there's a bicycle attached to the rear. And usually the processor or the computer would say, oh, those are two objects. So there may be a bicycle going sidewards, but then the vehicle in real time, live, asks the fleets, what's going on there? And then probably 100,000 times there was the situation where this happened. And then the car or the processor sees, oh, wait a minute, that must be a bicycle attached to a car and they're moving at the same speed. And, I got the big data input from there. So this is, in this case, obviously one object. And the predictions from this autonomous driving unit, they say, would be that good that it can even predict where the road is going without ever having seen the road, ever. And that is, of course, quite impressive. So when will they install this hardware? Elon Musk said that every new Tesla has this hardware. It can also be retrofitted, they told at some point, but at another point they said it's a little bit complicated to retrofit it, so I'm not exactly sure about this point yet, but every new Tesla will have the hardware that is then capable of the full autonomous drive later. They just need to do some more software tweaking, but obviously they are already way ahead of the competition in this case. Elon Musk says it's crazy to buy any other car than a Tesla. Well, yeah, maybe every manufacturer would say that, but what he means by that is when they deliver the new Teslas now, like Model 3, X, S, and also later the small SUV, the Model Y, what's going on there is the residual value will probably also depend on the autonomous driving capabilities. So when you buy another brand, and it won't have these features like in 2, 3, 4 or some odd years, probably a lot of buyers would say, oh, I want a car that is capable of autonomous driving. That's what Elon Musk means by that. And, of course, he is always exaggerating a little bit. That's also, a marketing program, yes. But he has a point with that probably when autonomous driving is there and a lot of manufacturers are not able to do it, it might indeed drop the residual value quite a lot. So is this a big game changer? Yes, it surely is, and I think it is even probably the biggest announcement in Tesla's history, because they will be offering a car riding service themselves, also a car sharing service, because you as a Tesla customer can then also share your vehicle. I think they said about 25-30% of the revenue of this car sharing goes to Tesla then, and they only allow it via their network. So if Uber or Lyft wants to use the Tesla cars for their services, they can't, because Tesla of course wants to do their own ride sharing, ride hauling network and take over that business. So Uber and Lyft are done then. Well, if the Tesla system works in a wide scale and there are a lot of Tesla cars on the road, yeah, that could be it for Uber and Lyft. However, you always have to think about, how long does it take to implement such a system? How many other cars are existent on the road? And then, of course, it takes a little bit longer. But if you think about it, you do not need a driver then, of course, that brings down the costs even further and maybe even more people would use this system. And are all other manufacturers doomed now? Well, let's say their service offerings. Every manufacturer wants to do a service provider nowadays, not only a car manufacturer, but offering mobility services. Yeah, and it seems to be that they are lacking behind in this case then now again. They have different models for that too. For example, BMW and Mercedes merged their car sharing service now. Yeah, they offer here and this and that, and there are also some project phases for some. VW has this Moya where they offer the T6, where you can do this ride hauling. Those are all, also now pretty good services, and they're emerging for sure. But when Tesla goes to the market that early with their fully autonomous system, I think as for the service branch of the other brands, they're pretty much done then, yes. Are they also done for car sales in general? I mean, that depends on. People want to drive their cars themselves for quite a while, yeah, sure. And we as car enthusiasts really enjoy driving our cars too. But there are surely always situations where we say, hey, in this traffic situation or so on, or like long motorway ride, probably I could use an autonomous driving capable car and, and drive something autonomously and something I drive myself. But indeed, if you don't offer such a system as a car manufacturer on a long-term run, I think that could be very problematic for the existing car manufacturers. So are we all driving fully autonomous quite soon? Well, that is also a question of the whole society. Elon Musk even claimed at the press conference that people in future probably will not allow or do not want to allow other people to drive the car themselves. That's a strong claim, yes, but if you think about it, someone wants, not to allow me to drive a car anymore, yeah, of course, that is kind of intrusive. But when you then think about, when other, or maybe like some crazy people are not allowed to drive cars anymore, that's then also a good thing. So always, also take the other perspective. And I mean, the thing is really, will it happen that we maybe have some like theme parks, like we have racetracks now, where we can drive the cars on our own, and in public traffic, only autonomous driving is allowed? That could indeed happen on a very long-term run, because, even just like myself, I really enjoy driving cars myself. But then when you think about then, you can trade off like 100,000 human lives against the possibility to drive the car yourself. What would you pick? Would you save the lives, or would you drive the car on your own? And I think then, latest at this point, it becomes a pretty big moral issue. So is Tesla dreaming again, or is Elon Musk just crazy? Well, so far with everything he said, yes, always strong marketing claims, but so far, mostly everything he announced became reality later on. Maybe not in the given time schedule, but a little bit later. But he usually stayed, true to his words. So I think it's quite real what they have there. Well, in 2020, will they be ready to do it? Maybe yes, so. The question is if they're allowed to, so the governmental regulations have to be in place so far. That is, I think, also the critical point. So in some countries it will come earlier than in other countries. And especially if you think about Europe, where the classic car manufacturers have a very strong political influence, I guess that might be coming later in Europe than in US, where they now have again a very strong manufacturer. And probably politics there in the US will say, go ahead, clear the other manufacturers off the ground. So, on so many levels, like, technology-wise, science-wise, of course, car industry-wise, political-wise, and so many different levels, a very, very interesting announcement what's going on there. And I think the most significant happening all over the automotive industry at the moment. What do you think? Please discuss those individual points here with us in the comments. And thanks for tuning in.